Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the first episode of Beefin with Ben for our very first inaugural episode. We have a very special guest. It's Michael Mma Chiesa. First of all, Michael, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. How you doing?
Doing good, man. I think the Beefin with Ben, the title, I didn't know that was the title, and I was like, wow, that is like way too fitting for this. So super excited, dude. I've been a busy guy. I've had this beef jerky sitting in my fridge. I mean, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I think everybody can get the vibe with the beef part, but I've been staring at this fucking beef jerky for a long time, just waiting to dive in. So I'm excited to finally get into it.
I'm excited to hear what you think of it. For those who don't know what the show Hot Ones is, great. This is a super original idea that we have here, and you've never seen anything like this before. For those of you who have seen Hot Ones, I'm ripping off Hot Ones, and I apologize in advance to Sean Evans. So right off the bat, I'm gonna before we even get into questions, have the first one. Let's dive right into it. I want to give you the shot to just enjoy it. Let's start with the original.
Okay,
you got to start with Ben's original.
Yeah, you got to start with Ben's original. Let's see what we got here. There's so many. For people that don't know, I'm looking at 8 different flavors of beef jerky, and there's some exquisite flavor names. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but I will say that this could be a future in this business for you, man. We'll find out. I'm not going to lie. I have an exquisite tongue for beef jerky. That's like a thing amongst my friends. Like when I got this package, specifically my friend Ryan, we have this like big group of friends, but I'm like, guys, you're never going to believe this package I got. And I like sent them the layout of the jerky. And they're all like, what the hell? Like everyone's freaking out, particularly my friend Ryan. He's like, you have to give me some of that. I saved your life. It's another story in itself. He kind of did, but yeah. So here we go. We got the Ben's original. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to go like a 3 piece at a time. So nice chunky wad here. Dude, this is like so tender and good. Wow. I'm doing one more.
So my first question is, you did an interview early on where you said you wanted to be a fighter ever since watching your first UFC event. And, you hear it, but what really drew you to it? I mean, you were talking about it. You were pretty young when you said that or decided that. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so when I was really young, I would say I was probably 96. It was 1996. So I was probably 96. I'm 9 or 10 years old. I'm at this kid Jeff Arnold's house who lived down the street from my dad, and we went in the basement, and his dad was like watching this fighting thing, and he was like, I'm gonna let you guys sit, because we're really young. I'm gonna let you guys sit and watch, but when it gets bloody, you gotta leave and go to the other room. We're like sick. So as we're watching, it's like, obviously it's hoist, but it's like there's a guy in a karate suit, and then there's like a buff guy in underwear, and then and I finally put the pieces together. I'm like, oh my God, that's Ken Shamrock. You know what I mean? World's most dangerous man. Who's making a run in the WWE. So like, holy crap. And then you see Chemo. Chemo was the guy, even over Hoist, Chemo was the guy that actually stood out to me. Like, people would think, like, I was a scrawny kid growing up, so they would think that my answer would be like, oh, Hoist stood out to me because he was a scrawny guy. Like, hell no. Chemo coming out like Jack, like fucking big back tattoos and stuff. Like, I was like, holy crap, this dude's like fucking the scariest looking guy ever. So so I saw it when I was really young, and then when I was in 7th grade, so at this time I'm like, 12, 13 years old. Between the time I saw the first one, and I remember in 96, when I was in Jeff Arnold's basement watching with his dad, I remember looking at the case to it. And I remember seeing specifically like the bald guy logo, like flexing around the world. And that stuck out to me. And so between then and the time I actually got to rent one and take it home, I would see it at the video store, and I would like call my mom and be like, let me freaking rent this tape. And she's like, no, it's like not rated for television, banned in 50 states. Like, absolutely not. So yeah, so it took a long time, for me to actually get one to take home to watch for myself when I could actually process what it was, because I didn't know what it was then. But yeah, 1996 was my first exposure to the UFC.
And your background's wrestling. You're kind of pretty far removed from those wrestling days. And something I always want to know is somebody who has a background in a combat sport, whether it be jujitsu, striking, or whatever it is. How much pure wrestling do you currently still do this deep into your career? And if you are still doing it, what do you do to stay sharp doing that I guess amateur wrestling style, if you do?
Well, first and foremost, in high school, I was really good through middle school, and I missed my first 2 seasons in high school through injuries. But I trained under a lot of high level coaches, and so when I transferred high schools, and so my junior senior year, I'm wrestling at a different high school, different group of coaches, different group of people, and I had like a little more high level experience than a lot of the guys I practiced with. So I went from going to like the middle school I went to, we like 22 years undefeated in competition, in dual meets. So really good coaches there. The high school was really good, placed top 3 at state a bunch of times. So I was like one of the guys that was most exposed to high level wrestling, but but junior year, obviously I'm getting my feet wet, you know what I mean? And then senior year, I started to make a good run, ended up cutting too much weight and fell short of my goals. And, but the one thing I did is I kept, even though I didn't go on to wrestle in the Air Force like I was supposed to, I kept wrestling after high school. I kept competing in freestyle tournaments. So I kept evolving, and it was pretty much in that time that I started to figure out that maybe I didn't want to try to walk onto a wrestling program. I think that I wanted to try mixed martial arts. And in terms of like my training for wrestling, I'm always working on my clinch game. That's like something I'm always doing in camp, out of camp. I'm always working on my clinch game, especially because that's a big part of my game, is fighting in the clinch in those upper body positions. But when it comes to like the actual hard wrestling training, I really save that for camp, because only wrestlers understand how tough a wrestling practice is. Like I actually haven't been through like a college type of practice in a while. But that's where that's where I acquire most of my injuries, most of my cuts, most of my black eyes, most of my twisted fingers and stubbed thumbs and tweaked knees. It's wrestling practice. It's very hard and challenging. So I usually save those hard days for when I'm in camp. And that's just because like where I live, it's I got a handful of wrestlers I train with that are super tough. And Washington's known for having a really gritty style of wrestling. And we have a lot of tough guys around here. So always working my clinch game, but when it comes to having those wrestling style practices where we're down in these low stances, shooting, doing a lot of chain wrestling, having a lot of these live situations, a lot of live matches, I save that for camp.
This is why I stick with jujitsu. I don't have to wrestle. I don't have to get injured. I just like being able to pull guard.
I call jujitsu combat yoga. I mean, yeah, we're tweaking each other's limbs. Like I actually kind of popped my meniscus the other night, got caught in a leg lock. But it's like it's pretty. You can make it very hard and intense. You can make anything you do in life. You can make it hard and intense. You know, but jujitsu is one of those things. It's year round. It's the best thing. I feel like it's the best thing to train for a mixed martial artist, because you could go in and you don't have to turn the intensity up. You can just flow. You can really. You know, you can mix it up with like lower belts or different types of skill levels. It's not like we're near a pro practice and everybody's there to kill each other. But then you could also, like, in the same practice room, you could, like, you know what? Well, I want to turn it up a notch. So instead of going with some lower belt guys, I'm going to go in with the black belts and scrap. So I feel like it's one of the best year-round, in-season, off-season trainings you can do.
All right. You have 8 more flavors to try.
Cool.
Floor is yours. Pick one.
I'm going to go. I'm just going to kind of close my eyes. I know which one I'm saving for last. I'm saving ghost pepper. We're going to save that one for.
Okay. So for full disclosure, I did lie a little. There might be a little bit pain. It depends on his pain tolerance, because some people think it's too hot. But
no. Well, there's only one way to find out.
That's true.
So I'm going to go this TK onion, which is
my personal favorite, actually.
Is it? All right.
It is actually my personal favorite. I had a different name for it, but then I was like, I got to do a little bit of MMA thing in the business. Just
TKO.
I had to do a little.
Technical onion. I like it. Ooh. You know what's funny? That same friend Ryan I was telling you about with the guy that's like really, really into beef jerky. Only guy is more into beef jerky than me is Ryan King. He fucking hates onions, and I'm gonna trick him. Because this is really good. I'm gonna trick him back, dude. You gotta try this flavor. This is so good. And when he takes a bite, like true story, we went and had sushi one night, and he'll be like, "I'm allergic to onions. They're fucking. I'll have an allergic reaction," which is a lie. He had this sushi roll, and it had green onions all over the top of it. As he's eating it, we're all sitting there just watching him because he always makes a big deal about these onions. And by the end, we're like, "Dude, you ate that roll that had onions all over." He's like, "Ugh, oh, my chest is on fire." I'm like, "Shut up!" But this is delicious.
So
that's really good.
So I want to stick on the topic of wrestling, but I know you're actually a pretty big fan of amateur wrestling. I see you tweeting about it occasionally. So I know you follow closely. So with regard to that, who are some of your favorite wrestlers to watch? I guess in college or internationally, whichever one you'd like to discuss. And if there's any guys you would actually like to see make that jump to MMA specifically.
Man, this is a great question because there's a lot of guys I could say. One guy that's graduated that I really enjoyed wrestling when he was in college. I really enjoyed watching Jason Nolf. That's a guy, and he's already currently training him and Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel starting an American Top Team at State College, like right in Penn State. But I always felt like watching Jason Nolf. My God, he has got a style. Like there's guys that have wrestling styles. I'll see him wrestle and be like, that guy's going to be a good fighter because the way he wrestles, I think he's going to be good at stand-up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's certain wrestling styles where you can see like this guy's going to be tough on the feet. But for me being like a grappling-based fighter, when I see Jason Nolf, I'm like, this is a guy that when he switches to MMA, he's going to be a fucking sick grappler. But I feel like his style, and it was this particularly his match he had with that Michigan State guy when he did this like weird Winn-Dixie like arm bar tilt thing where he's like straddling the guy's arm on the feet and he's kind of like sitting back on it, just doing some weird stuff. So Nolf's a guy I feel like they could translate well. And when it comes to other guys, I mean Sajalayev from Russia, he's freaking crazy to watch wrestle. I mean, this is the most nimble, 220-pound man you'll ever see. So he's really fun to watch. I think another guy, when I think of another guy that could have a really good MMA career, and I tweeted about this, I think Jaden Ironman. Jaden Ironman's got a really funky style of wrestling. He's a tough guy. He's kind of got the full package, kind of a wild card. Like he has an unorthodox style of wrestling, but he also is a tough wrestler. So it's like, this is a guy I feel like all around could be a good fighter. Another guy that I enjoy watching a ton is Yanni Diakmahalis. I think Yanni Diakmahalis, he's another one of those guys, super creative, really good in the scrambles. Just an all-around, just a really fun guy to watch. And for how young he is, I like his mentality. He's one of the guys that I take a particular liking to listen to Yanni talk. I'm a 33-year-old man, and if it's some, and I don't pull rank. I don't feel like I'm superior to anybody or their seniority, but like when a 21, 22-year-old kid like Yanni can get my attention and make me want to listen to what he has to say when it comes to like mindset towards combat sports. I think that's pretty cool. So those are some of my guys. I could do a 2-hour-long podcast talking about all the guys I like watching wrestling, but I think that's Yanni's a good one to end on. So
get another flavor. At this point, it's all you. Whenever you want, just start popping them and enjoy.
Mesquite Teriyaki. I'm gonna do it at the end because I can keep pretty good mental note of what I got going on here.
That's the second flavor I ever made, actually.
Mesquite Teriyaki. It's an interesting combination.
It's funny because I started this by accident completely. I was completely by accident.
Ooh, I like this smoky. You can taste the smoke, but it's got that Asian zing to it.
So on that note, I want to talk about you as a fighter because it's kind of been impressive to watch you develop as a fighter. This is a sidebar. I feel that oftentimes fighters who kind of grow up in the UFC, fans kind of like will hold on to maybe flaws that they've seen earlier in their career. So it's and they just never let it go. I think a perfect example of that is someone like Dustin Poirier, or I guess he's no longer in the UFC, but Ryan Bader was a perfect example as well, where people just won't let go of the things that they see happen earlier in the career. Those are flaws that just always attribute to them. So, watching you grow, you've been in the UFC for nearly a decade already at this point, right? So you've really grown into who you are as a fighter, it seems. Obviously still working on stuff, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about your development as a fighter over the years. There's some addendums to that, but what kind of changes to your approach towards both training and fighting have you made over the years? Things you've learned, picked up, dropped, just general changes to that.
I kind of, you said it very right. People, it's like a double-edged sword. People in the sport have a very short-term memory in terms of like, you're only as good as your last win. If you're riding a loss, there's like not a fan in sight. It's just rare, but when you win, everybody's all over your shit. But on the other side of that, people still hold on to a lot of things. They'll hold on to like, oh, bro, you got choked out by Anthony Pettis. It's like, fuck, man, that was like almost 3 years ago, but people cling on to certain things like that. So it kind of goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
The short-term part of the sport is you're only as good as your last fight. And that's a shitty reality. And that's not how I feel about myself, but that's just like the perspective part of it I say for the casual fans. For the hardcore fans, they're not. Their blade is sharp. There's not double edges. They have one way of going about it, and it's the smooth right way, So, and then the others, like I said, or the don't you ever talk about my mom thing? I'm like, God, like, the thing is, it doesn't bother me, but it's like, come on, dude, you unoriginal fuck, like, come up with something better. Like, it's like, oh, I got him good. You know what I mean? Oh, don't you ever talk about my mom? Does your mom got tickets? I'm like, wow, you're like, if I had a penny for every time that has been said to me, I'd have at least $200. But the one thing that's always been consistent for me is the work aspect of it. I put a lot of effort into the sport, and that's not just with the training. That's always been with, even before I've started to grow into this analyst commentary part. Even when I'm not training, I'm watching film. I'm even like my big thing I used to do is I used to just love digging on ShareDog and like looking up guys' records. So one thing that's always stayed consistent is the work ethic. But as you're growing in the UFC, I got in when I was 24. I'm growing in life as well. I'm going through different like personas, you know what I mean? With each year, especially through your 20s, like you're never the same person as each year passes by. And I went from, even though I always maintained my work ethic, it kind of evolved into like wanting to talk trash and kind of like self fights. And I think that part of that was like at that point in time, maybe I'm a little insecure with myself, personal things going on. So I kind of turned into like a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like I'll go back and listen to like interviews I did before certain fights when I'm like my mid to late 20s, my late 20s. I'm like, God, I just hate the guy that I'm listening to. I just sound rude. I'm like, there's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of like, I look back on it. It's like, that's not who I was. So I kind of went through this evolution as like being humble, hard-nosed, blue-collar guy, maybe got a little bit of arrogance with success and kind of started to turn borderline heel because I want to sell fights. I think that this is what I need to do to get to the next level. I need to talk shit. I need to hype these fights. I need to change my style as a fighter. I started like straying away from what got me to where I was as a whole. From a skill set standpoint and a personality standpoint, I strayed away from who I was. And it all kind of hit me in the face after I lost to Anthony Pettis. It was like, wow, what happened, And I got a call. And this is when I came back to where I am now. And this is me being true to myself and just true to my roots. I get a call from John Wood, who I spent a lot of time training with. And John Wood, for people that don't know, he's the head coach at Syndicate in Las Vegas, a guy I've spent a ton of training time with, someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I did that camp with John, and split my time with John and my home team, Sick Jitsu. And
Mhm.
John called me when I got home just to check and see how I was. And he's just like, man, can I just give you my honest opinion? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you need to just go back to who you were. Like when I first met you in 2013, you were this humble blue collar guy that just worked hard, and you need to go back to that guy. You've always been hardworking, but you quit trying to be someone you're not. This is why this is happening. You like be true to who you are. Be true to who you are as a fighter. Be true to who you are as a person. And that really struck a nerve with me, because it's not like it was like encouragement. It was like a borderline, like, kind of like, all right, man, now that your camp is over, I can finally tell you this. Like, the person you are sucks. Go back to who you are. So got back to my roots, started focusing more on my grappling, getting back to my wrestling. And, but, I can have balance. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with balance, but I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, stylistically, as a fighter and as a person. And now I'm being true to skills as a whole are evolving even better. And, yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing, man. The work's always been there, but it's just like the growth as a human being, going through the trials and tribulations in life. I've had to live my life and mature with all eyes on me all the time. I don't have the biggest following. I'm not saying I'm the most popular guy, because I'm not, but essentially that's just what it feels like, So it's been good, though. It's been a wild ride.
So I was going to kind of ask about the infamous Rick Little comments on body and leg kicks, but
Oh, I can tell you all about it.
please, I have to know, like, at least a little bit of detail on that.
You know what? While I'm doing that, I'm going to open it. I'm going to do a little honey sriracha. This is a spicy little segment about Rick Little. Let me taste the sriracha. Ooh. Okay. We're on to something here. Wow. That's good. This is what I wish sriracha tasted like, because sometimes like too much sriracha can be too much spice.
Yep.
But if sriracha had this sweet aftertaste, I would slather my food in it. I mean, I would literally. This is good. This one's tied with this one. All right, Rick Little.
Rick Little, let's go. I gotta know.
Okay. So I should give you a little backstory about Rick Little first.
Sure.
Sorry, I don't use toothpicks. I have to use thin things. Get this little gap back here. So Rick, he is been within my whole career. First guy I started with, and he's going to be the guy I end with. He's a guy where he's almost like a Greg Jackson, but he has fighting experience. Like, I'm not comparing Rick to Greg, but like Greg's a guy that doesn't have a lot of competition experience, but a ton of coaching experience. And he has interesting philosophies, and not as interesting as Rick Little's disregard to leg kicks and body shots. But he saw the UFC at a young age, went to Torrance, California to train with Hoist, spent some time training with Hoist, and then came up here, kind of started coaching guys as well as training with guys. He kind of jumped into coaching because there's really nothing up here. And he started competing himself. I think he went like 4-1 or 5-1 as an amateur against good guys. The guys he went against went on to be pros, but found that his niche was really coaching. And he says these quirky things, he really does have a really good eye for the sport. Like, there's so many things. Like, he has he refuses for where we live. We're in a small city, and a lot of people have wanted to flock to our gym, but he likes to keep it small because he wants to give people their personal attention. But the body shot, he thinks mentality is a big part of the sport. But he just I think that he says these comments when he sees guys go down from shots that don't look as bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I can see the leg kick thing. I can't agree with him on. And this doesn't include calf kicks, because calf kicks are that's a totally different animal in itself. But a leg kick is always going to hurt you. And for me, I check leg kicks. I'm not saying I agree with Rick's philosophies. But when it comes to leg kicks, it's yes, if you just eat leg kicks and you don't do anything about it, they're going to fuck you up. Facts. But for him, it's like he thinks leg kicks are stupid because if you have stance, which it does help when it comes to just, and I have to specify this, leg kicks, not calf kicks. Calf kicks are different. When you have a really good stance, you can eat the kick and come in with a punch. You know what I mean? You can make people pay, and you see it like when Song Yadong fought Alejandro Perez. Right. When you saw Semi the Jedi, I forget the guy's last name, but the guy that fought James Krause's guy. I can only know these guys by their last. This one I remember by the last name. It was Vanilla Gorilla versus Semi the Jedi, and Semi the Jedi Vanilla Gorilla kept throwing naked leg kicks, and finally, like on the third one, Semi the Jedi, dude used to have a sick mullet, just fucking stepped in with the straight right and just floored him. So. The leg kick thing, I do see eye to eye with Rick on. Yes, I check them. Yes, I believe they're a weapon. I'm not on the same page as him in terms of like I think they're stupid and pointless. They can be, but I do think that like it's not a hard technique to address unless you're going against a specialist like an Edson Barbosa or a Jose Aldo or somebody that specifically that is their specialty. A leg kick is a lot easier to negate than people give it credit for. It's if a good stance and a straight punch can solve that. The belly kick one, I argue with Rick about this a lot because I'm like, he's like, his thing about it is if you can see the kick coming and you can brace yourself for it, there's no reason why you should go down from a body kick or a liver punch or a liver shot. But for me, I'm like, dude, the anatomy of a liver shot, it doesn't matter what you do. If you can get your rib to touch your liver like this hard, it's like the liver is the most sensitive organ in the body. You know that, right? To the touch. Yeah.
I gotta send you this article. You could share it with Vic. They had someone actually like a doctor explain exactly why it's impossible to keep standing once you hit the liver.
Yeah, it's like it's your body's natural reaction when that thing gets touched. It's like a subtle like that hard. Your body's natural reaction is to protect it. Like your body just shrivels up. I got dropped by a body shot when I was on Ultimate Fighter. I was going against Justin Lawrence, and he boom, 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 bing. He kind of boxed me, got my hands up, hit me with a body punch. I was like, ooh, that one was good. And you can tell when someone gets hit with a body punch because they go, like they're like, yep. Everything just comes in. You know what I mean? They try to poker face it. Then he did the same thing, touch the hand, touch my hands, got my hands up. Hit me again. And I remember when he hit me, I'm like, don't go down, don't go down, don't go down, don't go down, don't go down. And then the next thing you know, I'm like in the fetal. And so I argue with him like, dude, there's no fucking way. And I was like, I tell him all the time, I was like, I would give you I put $1,000 on the line if we got Edson Barbosa. And he's like, if you and this is the thing, he's like, well, if I know the kick's coming, there's no way I'm going down. And I'm like, dude, if Edson Barbosa was here, I would bet you $5,000 that you could not eat an Edson Barbosa body kick. If you know, like, all right, here we go. I'll argue with him all day. And he's bending on those theories a little bit, but he's brash. Sometimes he says very brash things. He's a brash guy.
Yeah. All right, new flavor. While I jump into this next one, because this is kind of a broad topic, and it's going to, I'm going to use you, I guess, as an example. I think at this point, it's very fair to say you're one of the better MMA grapplers today. Specifically, I was actually talking with the black belt on staff. Which one are you eating right now?
Honey hickory.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Oh wow. That's the most robust flavor out of all of them so far.
So like I said, you're clearly one of the best grapplers, I think, in MMA today. You've got to be ranked up there. And I think specifically as a back take and rear naked choke danger, I would put you only behind or on par with someone like Aljo, like who's also a back taking specialist, who's a freaky back taking specialist. So with respect to that, what is your general philosophy towards grappling geared to MMA? And jumping off that, because we've seen you beat fighters who I guess on paper would be, considered the much more accomplished grappler, Benno Dariush, for an example, who probably would have been a black belt world champion had he pursued jiu-jitsu further. So, what is your general philosophy towards that? compared to like BJJ guys or pure wrestlers or anything like that?
I think that first of all, my approach to MMA grappling, just without really having a specific coach or like type of instruction, just more of how like Rick showed me the basics and I took a liking to grappling and explored. Like, truth be told, I used to watch this ADCC 2007 highlight video all the time. I used to be so obsessed with Marcelo Garcia. It's not even funny. I still think he's one. To me, he's the best.
He's the goat. He is the.
I loved watching. And that doesn't mean like I watched this stuff like that's what I'm gonna do, because it's not like I'm out guillotining a bunch of guys and stuff like that. But it's just like I said, I once I learned the basics, it was like, wow, this is what I like the most. And I started doing all this YouTube stuff, and I'm like, I just fell in love with Marcelo Garcia and watching these ADCC highlight videos and stuff. But my grappling style is I focused. I used to compete in grappling a lot, and once I got more focused on fighting and went pro, obviously it is to get into advantageous positions and be able to land ground and pound. So a lot of it is just attacking levers. So a lot of like tying up the wrists and a lot of this stuff goes off the fence. Like a lot of it's like I get guys down against the fence and then I'm starting to attack wrists. I'm starting to reach around their back, use things in my length, but it's always to try to essentially take away their arms and have one free arm, or take away their legs and have a free leg, or just trying to take everything away from them, but still having one for myself. And I think a lot of that kind of came with like I kind of got thrown to the fire when I started training early. Before I even had 2 amateur fights, I was training with the pros and kind of getting my butt kicked a lot, having to rely on my wrestling. So I had to really, like, in these life or death situations, essentially, like, what was the best thing I could do? And that would be like wrestle and get to the back where I was safe. Like, I did a lot of leg riding in high school, big leg ride, power half guy. So obviously, like, that's where I was safest against these guys. If I could get to their back and get my hooks in, these guys can't beat me up. So that's when I just started to find ways. I don't really think there's ever been a fight where I haven't gotten to a guy's back at least once. Even in the fights Kevin Lee is the only guy whose back I didn't get to. Another story in itself. Fuck that guy. Love him. Kind of love him, kind of hate him. He's a dork, whatever. But like every fight, even the ones I lose, I've always gotten to somebody's back. And so it's just like a natural habit I have of knowing, like, if going against a righty southpaw, I know I can slip this punch, pivot, and I'm essentially behind him, in a, just like a waist lock, and I can drag him down, the way I can lace my legs or use my trips and things like that. I know that if I'm going against a southpaw, I know a punch I can slip to find my entry, to slide the punch, pivot, get on the back, different types of openings. I like to swim under the arms, things like that. But, like I said, I just think that my focus with MMA grappling is like try to take away something of theirs while you still have one for yourself, and I think that's really important. And you can see that like in the Dagestan style of like these Dagestan guys, they'll take away all your limbs, but still have a way to have one to where they can hit you. And I kind of have the same concept, but just not the same type of techniques they do. But I think that and it might sound biased, there'll be guys who'll be like, well, fight starts standing. Stand-up's the most important. I'm like, well, I've seen a lot more grappling-based fighters be able to survive on the feet with minimal striking skills than I've seen strikers be able to survive on the ground with minimal ground skills. I think the ground is, to me, that's the most dangerous area in a fight. It's like, I think the scariest thing for me, and I think that's why I put so much emphasis into grappling, was all those times I got my ass kicked in training when I first started. The worst feeling in the world wasn't getting hit on the feet or getting dropped or getting my nose busted or anything like that. The worst feeling in the world was being stuck on your back and not being able to get up while you're getting hit. That to me is the scariest position you could be in a fight, is if you are dog ass tired, or if you just don't have this technical abilities to get up off the ground and you're stuck on your back getting hit. I think that there's no scarier place to be. Then you got the options to get your arms busted, your neck cranked, your leg twisted off. Like, there's just like, there's so much to it, so I think that, I think that's, I think MMA grappling is one of the most important. It is the most important aspect of the sport.
Anyway,
I'm gonna tap in and make at this applewood right now. So let's see what we got here with this.
Oh yeah, you can taste the apple. Like really taste the apple.
That's nice. That's good. I haven't had a bad flavor yet. This is great. So much so that Blue is just hounding me for this jerky. Blue's my big dog. You can have one. You can have one piece of jerky, then you got to go. Get out of here. Go. Beggar. That's good.
I wanna speak about your most recent fight, which is the Neil Magny fight, because you actually posted about this, that this is, you're always constantly hard on yourself and you're reflecting on yourself in fights, and you said this is the first time in my career I can say that I'm proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what impressed me so much about the fight is it wasn't so much your grappling, because I know you're an excellent grappler. I expect you to grapple well, even if it is against someone like Neil Magny. What impressed me was that, and most people, was that Neil Magny, the clinch for Neil Magny is kind of a black hole of sadness for every fighter that engages in it. They go in optimistic and I've got this, and they come out wishing they never entered. So you went in there, and not only were you competitive, you were beating him for the majority of the fight in the clinch. So that performance, talk to me about the training camp for that, because a lot of times fighters just choose to avoid that. Like, I'm going to avoid where he's best and do something else. You chose to go right in.
I think that's, for one, I love fighting in the clinch, and I felt like it was like, oh, this is a challenge. Like, this guy is revered as like the better clinch fighter at welterweight. That's where I want to fight this guy. I want to go into his wheelhouse because this is where I feel I'm strong. And I feel like, for one, Neil's other black hole that he has in his style is his cardio. And I think it's like the combination of the two. Guys will think they can go in the clinch with him, have a little bit of success, but he really wears on you. He's lanky, he can tie you up. And then as the fight goes on, those two things blend together, and it's a nightmare. He'll walk you down, he'll stay in your face, he'll hang on you and punch you and clinch you and knee you and just kind of put volume on you and kind of wear you down. I think that the difference between me and Neil is I feel like I have more horsepower, and I feel like that as a welterweight, I feel like this is the fight where maybe people kind of took notice, because I mean, we've seen Neil lose, but we've never seen Neil get just ragdolled. I mean, he had a few moments in the fight where he looked good. He landed a knee, had my back for a sec. But for the most part, he just kind of got bullied around. And I feel like just the time that the Blue, get out of here. Beggar.
You got him hooked. What'd you do?
Yeah. When I decided to make, I always, my another theory about training, kind of backtracking a little bit, I feel like when it comes to the two, MMA is essentially divided into two styles of fighting. You're either a grappler or you are a striker. There's really, a striker, you're a Muay Thai guy, you're a boxer, you're a kickboxer. Grappler, you are jiu-jitsu, you're a wrestler, no-gi guy, whatever. There's only two avenues in terms of what kind of fighter you are. And I feel like if you are a striker, you need to focus on speed. You need to do the things that make you a lot faster. You need to be the faster, slicker guy. You need to have faster reaction times. You need to put a lot of emphasis into your speed. You need to almost train like a boxer. Lots of road work, things like that. When you're a grappler, you have to focus on being strong. You have to hit the weight room. People think I hear a lot of people think strength and conditioning is stupid. This is how injuries happen. No, get with the coach that's not going to make you fucking stand on a Bosu ball on one foot and fucking do a squat with a bar on your back. Yeah, that's when you get hurt. Get with a good coach. So that's a lot. I put a lot of emphasis into that when I was able to quit my job and get in the UFC. It's time to hit the weights. And that's kind of what led to the evolution to get into welterweight. And once I made the jump to welterweight, I'd already been working with Bo at the PI, and it was like, hey, I'm ready to go to welterweight. And he's like, well, there's no turning back now, because this is how you're going to lift. This is how you're going to eat. And I have spent, since I lost to Anthony Pettis, it is always hard lifting at least 3 days a week. So I feel like when it comes to the Neil Magny fight, I avoided that black hole because my fucking spaceship had a shit ton of power and I was able to fucking pull right out of it. You know what I mean? So I don't even know where that analogy came from, but spaceship, black holes, Neil deGrasse. But
I have his book. It's right
and I'm wearing like this Stone Gamers League. Shout out to my boy Zeus. You know, got this astronaut thing going. Yeah,
love it.
But yeah, so I think that's just kind of like Neil's strength ultimately became his weakness that fight, because it's when everybody has the same skills, it's going to boil down to who has more physical ability to exert the technique. If everybody knows the same skills, which guy is going to be the one that hits the techniques? It's going to be the guy that's stronger. It's going to be the guy that's faster. It's going to be the guy that's more athletic. That's like, I have more of a physical attribute to exert this technique on you. If we all know the same fucking guillotine, and that's the only move we know, and we're the same size, everything is equal, but one guy does strength conditioning and the other one doesn't, guess who's going to get that guillotine? It's going to be the guy that's the stronger, faster guy. So I feel like that's where I beat Neil. Is maybe our skills in the clinch are somewhat could be perceived as equal before the fight, but I was a stronger guy. I was able to use my strength and my strength and conditioning program to shut down his clinch and his cardio.
So I guess before we go on to my final question, I would say
open a flavor,
a couple flavors in. Yeah.
Let's go. You know what?
Fun stat for you. Fun stat for you. You scored more takedowns in your 4 welterweight fights than you did in your prior 11 lightweight fights.
Wow.
At lightweight.
That's crazy.
19 versus 17, which I think really touches on that getting back to what you really wanted to do. So just a little tidbit. All right, maple glaze.
Oh. Fun fact about me. I can literally drink maple syrup. I love maple. I could prove it. I will go grab maple syrup out of the cupboard. I will drink maple syrup. I can drink maple syrup. We do it every year for my birthday. This is really good. I'm going to transition right into this one. Before the last question, I'm going to do the brown sugar bomb.
The brown sugar bourbon, baby.
Bourbon. I thought I said bomb.
Bourbon. No, it's brown sugar bourbon. I just have a shitty handwriting.
No, it looks abbreviated. Ooh, that's good. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I had a bad flavor, honestly.
I really appreciate that.
Is there real bourbon? Is there real bourbon?
Real bourbon. A real bourbon.
I really like that. This is, out of all the flavors, this one's been the most. This is like a different type of flavor I've never had. Like, these are all different. These are all gourmet. These are all delicious. It's not your run-of-the-mill beef jerky. This is gourmet shit, people. But like, I've never had a jerky that's made with like a bourbon or like a whiskey or something like that. So this is like it's a different flavor I've never experienced.
Final question. It's final MMA related question, I guess. As you get more and more involved in your jobs behind the desk, behind the computer, podcasting, all that stuff, I just want to know, has your perspective shifted when it comes to how you view fights and fighting in general? Really simple, really straightforward.
It's really made me watch fights a little more, I guess, objectively, you could say. I used to watch fights a lot, and it always would be putting myself in that situation. Like, even like watching a heavyweight, it'd be like, oh, this is what I would do. You know what I mean? I analyze these guys and recognize their skills, but it's more like, oh, this is what I would do. And my why as to what I would do was revolving around me and my skills. And it's taken me out of the equation where now it's like, okay, what should this guy do differently? Instead of like, how would I beat this guy? It's more like, how should this guy win? What is his path to victory? Just kind of taking myself out of the equation. And I will say this, one of my biggest role models in life has always been Daniel Cormier. And this goes way before MMA. Like I looked up to Daniel Cormier when I was in high school. I bought his wrestling shoes. Like he had black and red Adidas Combat Speeds. I was like, I got to have them. So I got them for my senior year in high school. So he's a guy I've always admired. And I've always felt like, especially when he got in the sport, like I need to do whatever he's doing. I want you admire people, and the people you admire, those are the people that you should emulate. So you can, if you don't have a direction in life, there's your direction right there. Follow the path of the people that you look up to. And so I see his success, and he's obtained everything I've wanted times 2. I mean, he's been the champion in 2 weight classes, and it's like, I want to do everything that Daniel Cormier does. And so that's what I always wanted to commentate. I always wanted to get involved with more X's and O's of the sport. But it was when I saw the success that he was having and how good he was at being an analyst and being a commentator and all of these things, I was like, it made me want to do it more. And I feel like it makes you a better athlete when you are able to analyze fights. When I break down film, I do it totally different. I don't have to focus on a fight and just put myself in the equation. I need to just break these fighters down, whether I'm facing them or not. I just need to break them down without anybody being in an equation. I need to just break them down for what they have, what their deficits are. Really just look at the sport, which is more of a blank slate, instead of looking at it with kind of like a theme. Like, this is the theme. The theme revolves around me, and everything that I analyze about each guy revolves around me. It's like, no, just now this has no theme. It's just free form thinking, calling it as you see in it. And sometimes the things you see aren't 100% factual. Sometimes it's opinionated. Sometimes you're sitting at the desk with Rashad Evans and you're having a healthy disagreement about what somebody should do or not do. And I'm not saying I've done that with Rashad. I'm just saying, is it just a hypothetical? Like, so it's helped me broaden my skill set as a fighter and just have a better eye for the sport. And there's only so many ways you can mentally. The sport's 99% mental, and there's only so many ways you can train that part. Train your mentality. You can see a sports psychologist. You can see a hypnotherapist, whatever. There's only so many ways you can do it, but I feel like this is a very special one that I've been very blessed with. So,
well, that's very true, and it's worth noting you're pretty damn good at it. So,
thank you. I
like it,
and I want to say I think that it's not a matter of it's not a matter if I think it'll be a win. Sometime I think I'll finally earn the right to be a commentator, and I think that'll be great. I like being a part of the narrative of these fights. The fights are always going to take place, and that's what fans are there to tune in on. But the narration sometimes is what makes them extra special. When you get good chemistry behind the desk, ringside, that makes the moments even more special. And I want to be a part of that. And hopefully I get to that at some point. It's like off the top of my head, it's like, what made Rose Namajunas' win over Joanna even more spectacular than it already was? That little extra bit was the narrative. DC cage side, Thug Rose. I mean, the extra little narrative is like what makes these things more spectacular. The 99.9% of it all revolves around the performances and the fighters. But sometimes the commentators, there's these special moments they have that make them extra special. And I want to be a part of that someday. I want to be a part of special fights. I just want to be a part of, special moments thereafter too, when I can't compete. And I think that'll be my way to do it.
I think that everyone will keep using that meme picture of Cormier just falling over, his hand on his forehead. Just Rogan is losing his shit. John Rogan trying to keep it together.
Dude, Rogan looks like that was the Beneil Dariush versus Drakkar Close fight. That meme,
that's
the
awesome.
one you're talking about.
I love that.
Rogan looks like he's getting shot out of a rocket ship, because as it's happening, he's like, it's like he's hitting the drop on a roller coaster. Like he's like going further and further backwards in his seat. And he's like,
oh my God, it's great.
I love that picture. Priceless. That was like, What a fight. I mean, what
Holy
a fight.
shit, that fight was crazy.
The best fight that could possibly happen for. Because, I mean, dude, Beneil was all but done. And then just like overhand left out of nowhere. And all of a sudden it's like this huge momentum shift. And Rogan just.
Rogan looked like walking at him. Like zombie walking at him. And just, I'm like, that's not how Beneil Dariush usually fights. What the hell is
Rogan,
right now?
Rogan looked like he was like taking flight in a fucking rocket ship. He was just like, whoa, like, oh my God. Back to the space stuff. We're always transitioning back to the space stuff.
I can grab the book for you. Like,
that's awesome.
I mean, I have plenty more to ask you about MMA, but I want to watch you try the ghost pepper because I have a piece of it with me too.
I'm a little nervous.
It's honestly, I happen to have, I guess, a higher tolerance of hotter things. So I don't think it's that hot personally, but my coworker,
The spice isn't too bad.
It shouldn't be too bad. I don't think so, at least. I think it has like a nice, decent heat, but not like you're not gonna need to like stop eating it, I think.
Ooh. That's got sorry.
No problem.
That has a nice zip to it. That is not bad at all. Oh wow.
It is a little drier than the other flavors, just by nature
Obviously,
of how the marinade is. Yeah. There's a lot more sodium. There's a lot more sodium in that particular flavor than in any other flavor I make.
I'm glad I didn't eat dinner because I've ate like a pound of jerky, which isn't a bad thing at all. I mean,
all right. First off, just what do you do? You're busy as shit. So what do you do to unwind? I know you like snowboarding. What else do you do to unwind? You know.
I'm a sucker for a good beer. I'd be a liar if I said I don't like to have cold ones with the boys. You know, I'm a 33-year-old, 21-year-old. I like to have beers with my friends. I don't have kids. I'm still just a big grown kid. So I like to have beers with my friends. I mean, I spend a lot of time on the road. Mm-hmm. Obviously, probably my favorite thing to do to unwind is I really love coming home. I love being home. I mean, I bought my dream home when I was 25. I bought a beat up cabin in the woods on a nice little spread of land. And I just like being in my dirty, dusty cabin with my hot fiance and my two cool dogs. And I like just being at home and just relaxing, you know, and obviously having beers with my friends and snowboarding and skateboarding and doing gi jiu-jitsu. I mean, that's just kind of like that's what I like to do in my downtime. I mean, that's in no particular order. I mean, obviously family time is the most important, but outside of that, I mean, it's pretty actually, yeah, I could probably rank it. Time at home, jiu-jitsu, snowboarding, beers with the boys.
It's a solid top 4. What's the 5th? We got to get a top 5. We got to round that out.
I would say probably just kind of being a meathead and lifting weights in the garage. During the quarantine, I built a nice little home gym, and it's been this last year that I've really, my traveling schedule didn't really start till August last year, but like ever since August, I've never been more busy in my life. Just like, you know, I'm always training, you know, it's 5 days a week. My out of camp kind of base is train 5 days a week, 8 workouts in the week. You don't got to overdo yourself, but 8 workouts in a 5-day span, couple 2-a-days, some 3-a-days, some 1-a-days, things like that. You know, so I got to get home for a couple of days. I got to jam in my training before I hit the road and things like that. So I think that, yeah, in that order, it's home with the family, jiu-jitsu, snowboarding, beers with the boys, being a meathead.
Love it.
Slinging weights, swinging maces, things like that.
I love it. Oh,
yes, sir.
I guess I gotta let you go because at this point it's got to be late for you. And you know, before we go, I gotta have you rank. I gotta have you rank my jerky. I gotta have you rank it.
We're doing a top 3, right?
Let's do a top 3. We don't gotta do a whole thing. Top 3.
Honey sriracha is number 3. Definitely number 3. Like the hints of the sriracha with the sweetness. That's my number 3. I'm gonna go honey hickory. That hickory is good, and it's actually a tie for second because the brown sugar bourbon. I feel like both of these had really robust flavors that I've never really experienced. Obviously, the honey hickory, just like you said, is just like you got to hit this one right. You know, it's like a perfection type of thing. And in the bourbon, I've never had the bourbon flavor, so these ones are tied for second. And then I got to give it to Ben's Original. I think that the Ben's Original was it was good. It's like and I actually, just to like test it as we were going through this, like I went back to it 2 different times. Like it was after I had the honey sriracha or the brown sugar and the honey hickory that I like went back and took another little piece of the Ben's Original to see if it still held the lead, and Ben's Original held up.
Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you for being the first guest ever on Beefin with Ben. Before we go, I got to do the Sean Evans thing. Look at this camera and this camera and this camera, and tell us where we can find you or what you're doing and all that good stuff. I'm doing as well as him.
Boom, boom, boom. All my social media is at MikeNav22. Catch me on LFA once a month, commentating, UFC analyst desk as well, and hopefully back in the octagon this summer.
Looking forward to it. And if anyone wants to order some beef jerky, you could find me at Agent Ben10 on Twitter. I take orders through that. You could find me on my Instagram at Ben's_beef jerky. Shoot me a follow. Definitely follow and send your love and support to Mike. Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome, brother. I'll be in touch. Thank you for having me on. I bet you I'm going to get a bunch of my friends to order your beef jerky, so don't be surprised if you got to send some orders out here to Spokane, Washington.